Welcome, new and old friends. My name is 242, and tonight I have two ghost stories for you. They are from the same OP. There will be a total of 5 two-sentence horrors to give you an even better chill. So turn off your lights, make sure your doors and windows are locked. It's about to get spooky. My family can remember their past lives. So one day, I told my son I was a girl who was murdered. He grinned and said, "What are the odds we'd meet again?" I've climbed Everest dozens of times, but I've never made it to the summit. I've begun using my own corpses as trail markers, attempting to reach the top before I freeze to death again. The Crying Woman by Ugly Little Mugbean. It was about 1 or 2 in the morning when I was browsing on YouTube. I had my earphones in, scrolling through the different videos of my usual YouTubers that I watch for entertainment. I always had trouble sleeping, so I always turned to videos in an attempt to make myself sleepy. I was halfway through a pretty funny and lighthearted video when I suddenly started to hear faint weeping growing louder and louder. I tried to figure out what was going on with the video. It didn't seem to be part of the music that was playing. I paused the video and still heard the weeping. I take out my earphones to listen more carefully and turn on my lamp next to my bed as I sat up. That's when I finally realized that it was coming from right outside my bedroom door and into the hallway where my other family members' bedrooms were. I sat there trying to think who it could be and figured it must have been my little brother who tried to get up for the toilet but got scared halfway through the hallway. Like a good big sister I was, I got up to get him. As I got closer to the door, it sounded like he was right outside my bedroom. I grabbed the handle and turned, making a clicking sound. A startled gasp could be heard and the crying stops. I peeked into the hallway expecting to see my brother, but no one was there. I proceeded to check on all my family members. I figured maybe I heard my mom or little sister, who might have been the one behind the weeping and sobs. Goosebumps scattered all over my body to my disturbance. Everyone was deep asleep. I was the only one awake. The next few days, I kind of forgot about that night. Soon, everything slowly went back to normal, so it seemed. That is until a few weeks later, on one night around 9 p.m., usually when my brother and sister would go to sleep for school, I was still awake doing my usual scrolling through YouTube when my little brother came into my room looking half asleep and concerned. I asked him what was wrong. He replied, "Are you okay, sissy?" "What do you mean?" I looked at him with a confusing look. He then went on to explain to me that my crying had woke him up. He then walked back to his room. I'm a little bit ashamed to admit this, but I slept in my sister's room that night. Even though this all happened earlier this year, I still feel uncomfortable being in my own room, and I feel this weird, intense, heavy feeling in my chest. I haven't heard the woman's cry since, but sometimes, out of nowhere, I feel like crying too. As the rescuers' boat approached the flooding building, they managed to rescue a frantic dog just in time before the water began to rise. Timmy, exhausted from hours of screaming for help, awoke to find his faithful companion gone, leaving him stuck, cold, and alone. I Think My Town is Haunted by Ugly Little Mugbean. With the last story I posted about the crying woman, I started to seriously think about looking into my town's history. I live in Western Australia in a small mine town in the Pilbara. For my own safety reasons, I will not disclose the name of the town. Instead, we'll call it Wilkins. Taking place shortly after the crying woman happened, I slowly started to open up about the spooky experiences to my fellow friends I have. I was expecting the usual underwhelming responses like, "Oh yeah, that's creepy," and then moving on to the next topic. To my surprise, they shared their own spooky experiences with me. One of them told me that when he first moved to Wilkins, he had the opportunity to work night shifts at Kohl's. Usually it's only him, his manager, and 2 more employees for the night to clean and restock the whole store. When he started working there, he expressed his concerns straight away to his family that he was being watched, along with the misplacements of the box cutters and pens, and find them in odd and dangerous places. Like his box cutter, one of his co-workers was stacking the highest shelf when the box cutter fell onto them, having the blade out, almost cutting their face. Even though he is certain he has had them on him at all times since, he was always consistent on having things in order, since the manager was pretty strict on keeping everything in check to not lose work supplies. One night shift, he was desperately trying to finish restocking some produce down an aisle since they were short-staffed, it only being himself and the manager, plus it was close to clocking off for the night. He would usually have his earphones in playing music when he worked, so when he heard a man's voice growling right in his ear, "Not there," he spun around, startled to find no one. He tried to shrug it off as hearing things. That is until when he turned around to grab the next box, he found it at the end of the aisle looking like someone had just thrown it. As he tried to make sense of what just happened, he knew it was impossible to be his manager as she only works in the back of the store. My other friend, she told me quite a few examples of what she has witnessed. She would do house sitting as a gig to earn some quick cash. Then she would use the money to go out for the weekends to the pub regularly. Many times when she house sits, there will be some pets she has to look after too. Things that would happen usually, she would see a figure on the corner of her eye moving and sometimes see them sitting in the corner of a room, misplacing things when she was sure she had placed it elsewhere, seeing the cats and the dogs growling, hissing and barking at nothing, and not going into certain rooms of the house. She mentioned sometimes that the radio or TV would turn off at certain times of the day, along with the lights turning off in a strange pattern as if someone was walking around the house turning them off as they go. During the day, she would take the owner's dog for a stroll around the town. Even in a busy little quarter town, the air felt eerie and otherworldly still. One experience she told me, however, is one I will not forget easily. After a night out of having a drink or two, she was ready to go home. In a smart routine, she called some of her friends and her parents to pick her up and drop her off home. But this particular night, no one answered. She decided to walk home as she couldn't be bothered waiting for someone to answer their phone. As she walked home, she could feel herself getting more sober by the minute. She felt that her chest was tightening up, making her feel panicked. She thought she was having an anxiety attack. She continuously kept looking behind and around her, explained that she felt like she was being followed. After a while of walking, she stopped and sat down on the curb of the road, tried calling again as she figured it was safer. Dialing numbers after numbers, but to no avail. Softly in the distance, she heard soft cries and groans, along with the sound of chains or shackles being moved against each other in a rhythm. As she looked up, she saw across the road was a park. The longer she looked, she noticed dozens of dark, shadowy figures emerging from the trees, each one different in size and shape, slowly walking around and looked hunched over. Frozen in fear, she desperately tries to get up to run, but only starts crawling as fast as she could away from the park. The shackles crackling together, growing louder and louder along with groans and wailing sobs. She notices a separate clank of shackles coming from behind her. Too afraid to look, she manages to finally get up and run. She ran to the nearest house and banged on the door. The people inside were a couple with a few kids and were kind enough to drop her home. She never told her parents, or anyone else for that matter, because she didn't want to be criticized and be made fun of by little jabs saying she was an alcoholic and just seeing things. After hearing the stories of my friends' haunting experiences, I decided to do a bit of digging and asking around in Wilkins. To my own discovery, almost everyone I spoke with has their own unique story to share, yet they all had a similar theme. Each of their stories, they are mentioned hearing sobs, cries, and the clanking of shackles. I don't really understand how this all could be and how similar the stories are with each other. I think my town is haunted. He twisted the revolver, put the barrel against his head, and pulled the trigger. Click. But nothing happened. He began to cry because the thing which killed his parents just a few minutes ago knows that he's here. My girlfriend and I are a perfect match. Even though she doesn't want to make a donation, I'll have 2 brand new kidneys by the week's end. I feel like the winter chill is finally getting to me. A little town that's just haunted, the whole thing. How scary. Tell me what you think down below. I do hope that subscribe button isn't still red. I don't want you to miss any more videos. I'll see you this Thursday for our day stories that are about Am I the Butthole? Sleep tight, and I hope 42 doesn't bite.